Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 275, and today's date is January 28th, 2014, and the title of this episode is Another Country Sells Off U.S. Dollars to Diversify Reserves into the Yuan, and we'll get into that a little bit later in this report, but let's get started with the economic collapse news. And what we are seeing right now is Lloyds, a banking group, is cutting around 1,300 jobs, and we've seen this in banks in the past. Just a couple months ago, around September, October, Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America laid off people in the mortgage department because they realized the housing was declining. And of course, if the mortgage applications are plunging, you don't need those people sitting there issuing mortgages, so they got rid of those people and they shrunk the departments. And we are seeing this all throughout all different banks, and they will be laying off more people as time goes on because you're not going to need many of these type of people working. And of course, Lloyds was saying that this was a strategic review. A lot of the jobs were duplicated and they don't need these people. And we usually see this coming into the start of a recession. We saw it back in 2007 going into 2008. A lot of companies were starting to lay off a lot of people. I know the company that I was working with in Manhattan laid off thousands upon thousands of people before 2008 of October. It happened a year earlier, and then throughout the entire year they laid off 200 and another 300 and another 150, and that continually went on. Now, the durable goods report came out, and it is terrible. The December number plunged by 4.3%, and on a year-to-year series is consistently negative. That means there is a recession coming up. And again, we have to look at this. I mean, computers and electronics, plunged to 1993 levels. And of course, they're blaming this on the weather. They always blame it on the weather. But again, people have been ordering things online. People order their computers online. They order their electronics online. And if you're stuck in your home, the weather has nothing to do with this. What is going to happen when all the brick and mortar stores are gone and everyone's online? How are they going to blame this on the weather? Now, as we know, the housing market is in a full decline. It was pumped up to make people believe that the housing market was improving. That's why Obama was out there in 2013 in August telling everyone in Arizona that we're in this fantastic recovery. But ever since that speech, housing has been declining every single month. Mortgages have been plummeting. Traffic to new homes have been plummeting. And now we see, just as I reported yesterday, new home construction, new home purchases are down 7%. And right now, the price index is also falling. The composite index posted its first monthly decline, dropping from 165.9 to 164.8, which is down 0.06%. And we're going to start to see this decline as time goes on because this housing market cannot be sustained. It can't be sustained because most of the people purchasing this home are not everyday Americans. It is investors, hedge funds, and they are purchasing these homes in cash, trying to push the market up. And they hold on to the houses. They don't care if they, rent them or not. And eventually they try to unload them. But when there's no one to unload them to, what do you do with them? And we're going to start seeing the housing market start to really ramp up in the decline mode here, and it's going to start to plummet as time goes on. Now, in a couple of reports ago, reported that JP Morgan saw a huge withdrawal from their gold vault, and we're seeing this happen again. In JP Morgan, we saw an identical withdrawal of about 321,000 ounces, matching the record withdrawal and amounting to 28% of all JP Morgan gold in storage. Adding to Friday's drop, this means that a record 47% of JP Morgan's gold has been withdrawn in a few short days. It looks like people are trying to get their hands on the physical metal. They don't want the paper, they want the real stuff. And the only reason they want the real stuff is because they realize they better get it now or they will not be able to get it at all. Now, we understand that the Fed made the announcement in December about tapering and how they're going to taper $10 billion each month, and they haven't started that yet. And right now, again, if they start to taper this, who is going to purchase the Treasury bonds? Again, most of the countries out there are not purchasing; they are selling their Treasury bonds. China has already said it doesn't see a benefit of holding U.S. dollars. It doesn't see a benefit of holding Treasury bonds. Russia has said the same thing. And right now, the Fed is the purchaser of Treasury bonds. So what they have done, the government, the Obama administration, is going to unveil a Treasury IRA. Now, right now, it will not be mandatory. They are setting it up, and President Obama will unveil a new retirement savings plan tonight that allows first-time savers to buy U.S. Treasury bonds tax-deferred for retirement. And again, you'll be putting these Treasury bonds into your account, which are completely worthless, and when the entire system comes crumbling down, they will be worth nothing. But the whole point of this is to get the American people to pick up the slack of the Treasury bond purchase. And you'll see as time goes on, they will eventually make this mandatory for every single person. Now, as the title of this report says, another country is selling off U.S. dollars to diversify into the yuan. This is happening all over the place, and a lot of these countries have been dumping the dollar in bilateral trade to use the yuan, and many of the countries have done this already: Brazil, Argentina, Indonesia, India, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Belarus, Hong Kong, South Korea, Russia, Malaysia, Venezuela, Syria, Cuba, Turkey, Dubai, and there are many other countries that have done this already. And right now, what has happened is that Nigeria, they came out and they said the Central Bank of Nigeria to sell dollars to diversify reserves. Nigeria Central Bank to raise share of yuan to 7% from 2%. Nigeria Central Bank to diversify reserves into the yuan. And we can see what is happening because we have to go back when we had the mall shooting in Africa. At the same time, China was making a deal with Kenya to be the clearinghouse for Africa for the yuan. And we can see what is happening at this time. Every single African nation will eventually be selling off the U.S. dollars, building up their reserves of the yuan, because this whole entire system is being transferred and moved over to the yuan. Right now, Kenya is the clearinghouse, and most of the other countries in Africa are going to start following suit, and they're going to start dumping the dollar and going into the yuan. And this is why the U.S., the French, the EU are all in Africa at this time. Chinese are pouring in billions of dollars using U.S. dollars to build up the infrastructure to help all these African nations drill and mine for natural resources. They've already made a clearinghouse for the yuan, and we can see how this is all playing out right now. This is the move. I mean, we're seeing many of the moves all over the world. All the countries are starting to take on the yuan. They're making deals with China. They're making deals with Russia. And the United States is sitting here using war, using force to keep everyone on the U.S. dollar. And this is what we are seeing happening right now. Now, yesterday I mentioned that Florida was introducing a bill that was going to nullify any gun laws that the federal government puts on the states. And we see right now Missouri is also doing the same thing. It was shot down by the governor, Jay Nixon. He vetoed it, but they're back again. They're introducing Bill 1439 by Representative Doug Funderburk, and What this bill goes on to say is that all federal acts, laws, executive orders, administrative orders, court orders, rules, regulations, whether past, present, or future, which infringe on the people's rights to keep and bear arms as guaranteed by the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 23 of the Missouri Constitution, shall be invalid in this state, shall not be recognized by this state, shall be specifically rejected by this state, and shall be considered null, void, and of no effect in this state. Now, I don't know why we need all these bills protecting us from the federal laws, because we have the Second Amendment already. It's very, very clear. And we're making this much more difficult by placing these laws to protect the rights of the people when they already have the laws here, and any law that the federal government does that is in contrast to the Bill of Rights is completely null and void. So, I mean, it's nice that they're doing this and reaffirming this, but again, the people need to speak out and say, absolutely not, absolutely not. This is an infringement of my rights, my Second Amendment rights, just like it's an infringement of my First, my Fourth, my Sixth, my Fifth, and we have to protect our rights, because on the top of the document it says, we the people. Now, we understand that the United States and the central bankers need to get into Afghanistan. Their mission is to get in there, and they need to keep this location. And right now, Karzai is making it very difficult for them, and they're getting very frustrated. And Karzai suspects U.S. is behind insurgent-style attacks. And right now, the President, Karzai, has frequently lashed out at the U.S. military for causing civilian casualties in its raids, but behind the scenes, he has been building a far broader case against the Americans, suggesting they may have aided or conducted shadowy insurgent-style attacks to undermine his government. You have to remember, the President of Afghanistan right now, he's in his last term. He's not going to be reelected or anything like that. And what is happening is the U.S. central bankers are losing control of the puppet regime right now. They are fighting back. They want their country. They do not want the U.S. government in there and raiding the homes of their people. They want them to only do what they want in their country, and the U.S. doesn't like this because, again, China is in there helping the Afghan people mine for copper because they have the third largest copper mine. The government in there is growing poppy, which they sell and convert into opium, and they sell across the world to fund their covert operations that would never be funded by the U.S. government. And they need to keep Afghanistan right now. And right now, the U.S. government is very angry with Karzai, and they're sitting there saying, do you really think we're trying to do this after we pumped in billions of dollars to your government? Well, this wasn't really for their government. It was to keep him in power, for him to do whatever they wanted. And again, they are not going to like this. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something happen in Afghanistan with regards to the government there, because they're not complying with signing the bilateral security agreement, and they are getting very frustrated with them in there, with President Karzai right now. Now, Kathy Kelly, who's a three-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee, is saying that the amount of money that the U.S. government has poured into Afghanistan on non-military aid is approaching about $100 billion, yet children are starving and the country is completely decimated. Well, that's because they don't care about the country. They care about the natural resources. They care about keeping the bases there in the strategic location, keeping China in check in Afghanistan. This is why all this money is being poured in there. And this goes on to say that the U.S. agencies that are supposed to implement development projects are completely incapable of carrying out their missions due to corruption and complete lack of oversight. Ms. Kelly believes the reason the U.S. wants to maintain a military presence in Afghanistan may be a U.S. interest in controlling the pricing and flow of precious resources found in Afghanistan. When asked whether opium was one of these resources, Ms. Kelly agreed that at this point that appears to be true. And we know it's true because we've seen pictures. I don't know if you've ever seen them before. We see the U.S. troops by the poppy fields, protecting the poppy fields, and there are many reports coming out of Afghanistan saying that this is what these poppy fields are being used for, to pay for covert operations in other areas. Now, we understand that the Ukraine is being hit with protests, and right now the Ukraine parliament repeals an anti-protest law to calm everyone down, but guess what? It is not working because, again, behind these protests and these people are the central bankers and the U.S. government. They are pushing because they want the Ukraine government out. They want a puppet regime, and they want to put the EU into the country. They want the country joined with NATO because it is in a strategic location. It borders the Black Sea. It borders Russia, and they want this country. So they will do everything to get it right now. But Putin says Russia is ready to support Ukraine regardless if the government officials step down and a new government comes in. They will still support the Ukraine at this time. Now, we understand that America, NATO forces, Canada, the European nations, Russia, they're all moving into the Arctic because they realize they want to capture the natural resources. They want to set up bases for World War III. And right now, the Russian defense sector is ready to supply armaments for the Defense Ministry's operation in the Arctic. They'll be moving military assets into this region, and we already know the United States is also moving into this region, and Canada is moving into this region. Now, Iran and North Korea are helping Syria resume building missiles. Syria has managed to enhance its missile production efforts thanks to the help of the North Korean and Iranians, and Assad's regime has been able to resume manufacturing missiles at a pace that exited before the 2011 start of the Syrian civil war. And we can see what is happening right now. The Syrian government is getting ready for a strike, and the Israelis have already bombed key missile sites where they were keeping the Russian missiles. The Geneva II talks are going absolutely nowhere. We've already seen the propaganda that Syria is behind cyber attacks. We've already seen intel that Syria has, or Assad has been hiding chemical weapons. War crime reports have come out against Assad, and they are building the case to go into Syria right now. And we understand that these delegations in Geneva are basically going to go absolutely no place, because the whole goal of Geneva II is to have Assad removed, and this is not going to happen whatsoever. Now, yesterday I reported that the government is giving aid and non-military aid in respect to small arms, but all of a sudden, in the next report that comes out, it says that Congress is secretly approved U.S. weapons flow to moderate Syrian rebels. Light arms supplied by the United States are flowing to moderate Syrian rebel factions in the south of the country, and using funding for months of further deliveries has been approved by Congress. Small arms, as well as some more powerful weapons such as anti-tank rockets, have been delivered to the rebels in Syria. So you can see what is happening. Israel came in, they bombed a lot of the defensive missiles that they had. Now armament and military assets are being supplied there. They have soldiers standing by in Jordan right now. And this is completely in preparation for another strike into Syria, because they realize they have no other way of getting Assad out, and they need him out. The goal is the same. The way they're going to do it is going to be a little different. Last time they used chemical weapons within the country. This time they're going to take it outside of the country, and this is what we need to be ready for. Now, yesterday I reported on Sochi and how we believe that something is going to occur there because of everything that's going on. There is an additional report out there saying that there is a dirty bomb fears in the Olympics. And national security experts are expressing increasing alarm over the possibility Islamist militants could use a dirty bomb at the 24 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. And this goes on to say that several factors make a radiological attack attractive to terrorists. According to a report of the Open Intelligence Langley Intelligence Group Network, preparation for a dirty bomb attack would be low, requiring only a small amount of radiological source material and conventional explosives. The technical requirements also are low. The report said no specialized training is required beyond knowing how to detonate an explosive. The havoc caused by a successful attack would be substantial for competitors and spectators. The prospect of being involved in an attack involving a radioactivity could lead easily to panic. The ensuing disruption will result in enormous financial losses and raise questions about where and how future games should be held. Now, yesterday I reported on the FBI reporting that they're worried about chemical weapons attack. So we're going to have to see how this plays out in Sochi. The Olympics start on February 7th, and there is a lot of hype about terrorist threats going on in Sochi. But what's interesting here back in America, FEMA is soliciting companies for motor coach evacuation of the general population. Less than 2 weeks ago, FEMA was seeking contractors who could supply biohazard disposable facilities, tarps, housing units. They also have recently been on the lookout for companies who are able to provide food, drinks on a grand scale, presumably the displaced who are living under the tarps or in the housing units, and they're looking to purchase many different things, beverages, prefab housing, public alert warning system, dumpsters, biohazard waste disposable, clothing, medical services support, sheet towels, linens, blankets, personal hygiene. So what are they getting ready for? What do they know that we don't? Well, we know the Super Bowl is coming up on February 2nd, which is Sunday. And right now, the CDP training has been preparing for a terrorist attack during the Super Bowl. 100 New Jerseyans, including firefighters, medical staff members, law enforcement, hazardous materials, and radiological responders, joined together at FEMA's Center for Domestic Preparedness. This training is part of our preparation plan, said Kelly Esposito. We've already developed a medical coordination center and have a staffing plan ready for the Super Bowl. If a large-scale event occurs during the Super Bowl, a portion of the resources that would respond are already here at the Super Bowl. So they are ready and prepared. Now, the Department of Defense announced that fighter jets from the continental United States North America Aerospace Defense Command region will conduct an air defense exercise Tuesday to prepare for protecting the skies around MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Now, let's take this one step further. The FBI says it considers the Super Bowl a possible target for terrorism, and its agents are doing everything possible to make the big game as safe as possible for athletes and fans. The FBI's Operations Center is located 9 miles from the MetLife Stadium. The agency is analyzing and preparing for every scenario. It's where they determine whether every terror threat that comes off the street or through cyberspace is credible. So they are all prepared. They all have bases surrounding the stadium. They've been in training for quite a while. They have people already on the ground, and the FBI is out there saying their biggest worry right now is homegrown terrorists. The FBI, Homeland Security, the officials are out there saying that they are worried most about a lone actor or a homegrown extremist attempting a small-scale attack. The FBI has said its primary role is to thwart a terrorist event such as an active shooter, bomber, biological or chemical or radiological threat in the stadium. So we can see how this is playing out. They are really building this up. Now again, this is a potential terrorist attack. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. But with all this preparation and all the indicators, it leads us to believe that something might happen. The same thing in Sochi. There are so many threats. There's so many precautions. There's so many intelligent reports out there saying that they're going to use chemical weapons. They're going to use a dirty bomb. They've already seen bombers in advance out there blowing things up, and it's all, and they already, the United States already has warships out there. They have an evacuation plan. The FBI is also out there too, and wherever the FBI is, it seems like things happen. And it seems like, to make it look really good, they would already be on the ground ready to hold off these terrorist people that are keeping the people inside the stadium. And we're going to definitely have to see how this entire thing plays out. And also, you have to remember, in February, the Iranian delegation is coming to New York to talk about the nuclear weapon peace deal. And yes, a couple of reports ago I mentioned that they have a training exercise in New York, which is restricted enrollment for nuclear devices being planted all around. And we have to remember also that, the Washington is putting up a blimp with a radar system, and that can, that radar system is vast and wide to look at things. We also had a helicopter in Baltimore, a helicopter in New York, in New Jersey, flying low, taking radiation levels to detect a dirty bomb or type of nuclear device. And they have been preparing for quite a while. And this leads us to believe that something potentially could happen. Now, we understand that tonight that Obama is going to be giving his State of the Union, and he has many different points, and Ben Swan on his site had talking points of the president, and he deciphered what they actually mean. And let me go through a couple of them here. The president says we've significantly cut the deficit in the last 5 years. Just remember, if you're going to watch this, the U.S. deficit varies each year, but the federal debt continues to balloon at record rates. In 2013, it surpassed $17 trillion, but Obama will not discuss the debt tonight. And Obama's saying, but there's still a lot of work to do. We can't cut our way out of this hole. What that means is it's an excuse for free-spending bureaucrats to tax at higher rates instead of enacting real spending cuts. Obama says it's only right that we ask everyone to pay their fair share in an attempt to use emotion to justify higher taxes. The president says the Affordable Care Act is working better than we expected despite a few bumps along the way. And this is what it really means. Obamacare, the largest government power grab of our generation, has caused over 4 million Americans to lose their insurance plans. Only 2 million people have signed up for Obamacare on the federal exchange. Obama says income inequality is defining challenge of our time. What he really means is, when you hear this, hold on to your wallets. We all know what this means. The president says we have to make sure that there are new ladders of opportunity into the middle class. This is what it means. This feel-good jargon means absolutely nothing. And president says long-term unemployed Americans are not lazy, and it's our job to protect them. This is what it means. In an attempt to justify Obama's welfare state, 20% of American households are now on food stamps, and about 50% of the U.S. population relies on government subsidies. The president says, if Congress refuses to cooperate with me, I'm prepared to act on my own. What this means is, translation, I am prepared to overstep the Constitution and blame Congress for anything that does not go my way. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.